Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 12 Step Crashers Freestyle Classic. We're Monday, if you're ever wondering. And I don't know which episode that is in the order, the series, because we're not scattered, but as we have established before going live, we are also not very coherent from one recording to the other. And that's great because this is about our life in real time and being vulnerable, isn't it, Eric?
Yeah, whatever you said.
So Eric was late by 20 minutes to this recording.
God, it happened once.
And I'm never annoyed by such things. But tonight, and I did not communicate this to Eric, I have plans after this recording. I usually have absolutely no life. But of all the days, yeah, that happened like this. See, we are able to communicate about this, but definitely not pick a fight about
Yeah,
this.
but you waited to the podcast to say something, so.
I am authentic, am I not?
But yeah, also you could have mentioned something sooner since you had like about 7 texts sent to me earlier.
That's my point. I did not communicate clearly, so I cannot be mad at you.
Clearly. I think your definition of clearly and my definition of clearly are two different things. You did not.
Okay. Scatterly. I use clearly to just say that I agree with you. What you said is clearly right,
Yes.
but it's also not clear what I'm saying.
Yes.
Right? So, all that to say that I do recognize and I'm observant of that fact in my life that usually if I'm up for a deception is because I did not communicate my wants or my desires or my needs properly. So I have only myself to blame for such a thing.
I agree. It's you to blame. Next topic.
How was your day, my friend?
How was my day? Oh, it was good. It was very productive from a work point of view. I disassociated for about 6 hours, and then I kind of woke up in the last 2 hours.
So
Yeah,
you
that
were
was.
very productive while not being present.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I wasn't present for the coworkers around me.
I see. Well, you didn't do any mistake that will cost your company too much.
Oh no, I was on top of my job, but
Uh,
no social battery this morning.
I think you're not paid to entertain discussion with others.
I, I
That's not
am
your
I
job
am
definition.
not. No, I should be paid quite a bit more to have discussions with these people. I shit you not. No, it usually doesn't take that long. And Mondays are usually good for me. The Mondays are my good days. I don't mind the Mondays. It's by Wednesday I'm tired of the place.
There's one thing. We keep hearing about the fucking moon. I'm starting to believe some of it.
I don't.
Everybody, not a single fucking soul I spoke to today was doing great. Not one.
Oh, I had a great day. I had no problems because I disassociated all morning and I was checking out my
Yes.
page and sending my memes. But
Which is also referred to as maladaptive coping mechanism.
yeah, I really enjoy it.
That's an addictive behavior, right? We need connection to stay sober.
Yeah, but I usually only do that at work. It seems like the place where I save it.
All I'm saying is that you were faced with discomfort
I
and
wasn't
you
discom- I
choose not
wasn't
to live it.
uncomfortable. I was not uncomfortable. Matter of fact, I was reveling in my disassociation. I realized it a bunch of times and I went, nah, I don't feel like changing this. This is going good and the line is running productively. So why change anything?
Okay. Okay.
Actually, they probably prefer me when I dissociate this way because I'm less disruptive.
That's one form of masking for neurodivergent. And in the context where communication is not essential, it works pretty well. But I gotta say that I've spent some considerable amount of time in my life entirely, completely dissociated, but I was interacting fine. I could even crack jokes or do activities. I was just beside my fucking shoes. Like I was not living that moment. There's different types of dissociation. That's one thing I'd like to stress out about that topic.
Yeah, this is a new dissociation for me in a way. Like before, I would come in like hammered. Well, I'd been hammered the night before, so I'm hungover, so I'm disassociating just because I can barely get my head out of my ass. But now it's almost some days. It's like today was at a certain point I realized I was doing it. And it's like, okay, now it's my choice because I've told you before in these podcasts I can work my way out of it, but chose not to.
That's very interesting. And I like how you reappropriate this ability, because it is an ability that you can actually control in your best interest in sobriety. Because I do remember dissociating so that I would not feel or care. I could do anything that I don't like. I could be the best at a job that I fucking hate if I can dissociate hard enough. Like, well, whatever. And that's something that I'm pretty sure people that are not neurodivergent barely understand or don't understand at all. I know for a fact it is not every addict that had this concept of escaping the room while being productive in it.
I'm sure I was disassociating because someone is texting me a lot. I'm trying to turn off the sound.
Well, I guess a distraction is not exactly dissociating,
Well,
but nice
whatever.
try. Nice try. You're distracted. Yeah, so I think as you mentioned it, there might be some value in a matter of self-preservation, self care, kind of, in a situation where you have no options. You don't have the flee or fight options because you cannot fight for obvious reason and you cannot flee for other obvious reasons. So you have to find another way to handle the situation in a way that
Yes.
is not disruptive.
And that's why today's dissociation, and it has been like this lately, this dissociation is more in my control than previous dissociation when I first came back to work, where it was the fight or flight mode I was in because I could have, like, I was way, and the odd time I have mornings like that where if they say anything to me when I'm, especially in the morning, I'm ready to punch out if I don't like what they say to me. I'm just like ready. I'm not ready to take anything they have to say, you know, at all. And I'll be like in my head. It's like today where I'm dissociating. I'm thinking about stuff I need, stuff I got going on. Let's just play this cool. Do your job. Let's have no drama today. Let's just stay. I chose to stay in my head, thinking of my memes when I was gonna post them. I was fully aware of what I was doing with my job, and I'm faster than the guy I was working with today because they rotate us. So I have lots of time to do my stuff. I literally would do my side. So it's like, all right, well, whatever. I didn't miss anything.
Well, it's funny because as you mentioned, the control and the concept that it's a decision, what I'm also hearing, and I relate to that as well, is that you found a way to detach yourself emotionally from that situation. You're not emotionally vulnerable in that place that you call your work environment because you already have your decision made on what's going to happen if things doesn't go the way that you need them to go,
That's
which
right.
is pretty soothing in itself. Like you can literally go into whatever mode. I'm going to give the best of me and I'm not going to be bothered. I'm not going to second guess myself. I'm just going to passively be there and I'll do what I'm best at doing. So there shouldn't be anybody complaining about it because you are a senior and you know what you're doing. People rely on you not because they're dependent. They rely on you because you have a knowledge and experience that most of the team does not have. Which is where the dissociation part, I guess, comes in for you because today I am not holding your hand. Today you're gonna figure it out by yourself, right? When you are in that mood, leave me alone kind of thing.
Yeah. Um, I will also say that a lot has changed, I think, with the therapy, where I had to be assertive. And when I was being assertive, I was getting pangs of guilt and unworthiness or a wound that literally I could feel it. It washed across my face and into my body. And it was just as a general sense of imposter, right? Being an imposter or something. And that stuff has gone away finally. I worked through it with therapy. I've talked about it openly. And now I'm back to where I should be, where I'm able to give orders, tell people what to do. But that's a weird thing in recovery. And we've heard other people talk about this in recovery. And this is why I always preach patience and you keep working on yourself. Because this was something I became cognizant of. I didn't like it because I knew it wasn't like me or normal. So I knew it was recovery based. I knew it was therapy based. And I knew I had to get to it and figure out what was going on. And it turned out there was a lot of different things about me that I needed to feel. It was leftover unresolved grief and loss, actually. Right. So all that left me feeling even less than everything else, right? You know what I mean? So it's not only like feeling sad, being reminded of your mother or lost relatives. It's the walking around like an open fucking wound where everything hurts you, right? Even when you try to be assertive, there's something that tells you without saying it. It's a feeling instead of a thought that's like, you're not worthy. And that took therapy and a lot of work, months of work to get through. And now I back to where I was, where I can even be sarcastic. I can walk down the line and I'll look them in the eye and go, "Are you working today, or are we all going to take this break together?" You know, that's like me, but that hadn't been there for a while. That confidence that I had in myself, that cockiness, because I've been there longer. I have the experience. I'm also the oldest guy on this unit, so all that to say that I don't.
It
You're
makes you a
25.
natural leader,
Well,
right?
also, you're 25 years younger than me. If I'm pushing the pace right now and you're slowing it down, I'm coming to see you. So, and this is all just, no one tells me to do this. This is assumed responsibilities, right? And I guess assume alpha male syndrome too, probably. Because
Yes.
that line has been mine for 8 years. People have come and gone. I'm the only permanent person left still on that line. We've had so many different people, it's not funny. Couldn't begin to name you all the people, how people rotate in and out of there. It is a meat grinder. So I have
Yeah.
to remember that. And it took a long time to get back to that place where I remembered that I'm the motherfucker still here. I've watched all you guys come and go. And I'll probably watch you leave. So yeah, it took a
I
while
felt
to
this
get back
one,
to that.
Eric. I felt this one about the 25-year-old age gap because we actually have 18 years between us, right?
Yeah, so when I say 25 years old, I'm not giving myself enough credit. Probably 35 years of difference
Older
with a
than them.
bunch of them. Yeah,
Yeah, because I consider myself senior in my role in which company I would be in. I hope I'd be a senior at my age, and I could be equals like we are on this podcast or in any other context where we interact together, right? I
right.
don't feel like you're paternalizing me, but I just made the calculation. Well, that's not much more than the gap between us two.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but we have a similar path in a lot of ways, and we have a lot of common interests too. It levels the field too, in a way, right? There's different fields of interest, different fields of convergence. There's different fields of engagement, and these people don't have, right? Now, it's just who they are. They're meant to be just what they're doing right now, which is
Yes,
part of my battle, is because I ended up here in I don't care mode and party weekend mode, and this was just a means to an end. And then coming out of recovery, it's kind of like, I hate this fucking place. It's like, how did I stay here this long? Oh yes, I remember how I stayed here this long. how
that's
did
what
I
I'm
deal
saying.
how did I deal with all those resentments? Oh yes, I remember how I did that too.
That back to I opened the discussion with you, like you were experiencing discomfort. You're mostly experiencing discomfort most of the days because,
Yeah.
well, whatever reason you name. But going back to the feeling of being an imposter and the relationship to grief, yeah, I have that a bit with my deceased dad as well. But I was reading recently that the imposter syndrome comes usually from very young child age, where you are exposed to situations where rather you do or you don't, the outcome is a punishment. Like situations where it doesn't matter if you're good or bad, you still fail. So succeeding is met with a consequence, and failing is also met with a consequence, and perhaps the same consequence, which means it doesn't matter what you do, which means that it doesn't matter how great you perform, you will still be met with a punishment or a deception. It doesn't even have to be an interaction with other people, but this is a big, big, big relationship to trauma in an environment where theoretically our primary caregivers are our parents. So the fact that you rolled it to the feeling, physical feeling, to the grief that you have in process right now, into the therapy you're running, um yeah, it really reached me as well as a reflection that I actually never had. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, well, interesting. I'm just glad I'm glad I'm always aware of it now. Like, I'm always continuously doing a self check anyways, it seems like, which is good because I think I always avoided that on purpose before, because it would have meant I had to confront the main issue in front of me, which was addiction. So, besides everything else, but addiction would have been the first thing I would have had to confront before tackling anything else. So now being sober, it allows me to one by one go through things, which is what I've been doing for over a year in therapy, is going one by one, approaching different issues, different subjects as they arise. Sometimes it's just the week I had and something came up, but a lot of time it's we spend. You know, I've told you this before. Spend time circling the drain until I figure out what it is we're going to end up working on. But I feel like my therapy is coming close to an end because obviously I don't want to pay for something when I'm starting to run out of, like I don't also want it to be like, oh, that's another part of my routine. It shouldn't be. It's to get me where I need to be. And then after that, it's on my own. And plus, if I ever come down to a point that I need therapy again, it's a phone call, right? So,
Yes, but there's also a point where your relationship to a therapist is kind of plateauing or reaching its end
yeah,
naturally
yeah.
when you have a familiarity with the person, or when you actually are able to see them coming. Like, I couldn't be your therapist because you see how full of shit I am before I actually even open my mouth. If I'm trying to guide you somewhere, you won't let me. And the same thing kind of applies at a certain point with a therapist, which
Well,
means that
and see, that's the only thing that's why I haven't stopped yet is because she's still able to get me somewhere. So
exactly,
it's
like, it's
it's
coming to
me.
an end, but it's not ended.
Yeah, but it's me that doesn't always know what I need to address now because I feel like I've hit a lot of the things. So now it's like fine tuning, maybe,
You know,
which is weird to say, fine tuning.
I always told myself that my post treatment plan was 2 years, which is gonna end in March, and then after that, I would figure out what my next step would be. So I'm looking to a point where my recovery from substance use disorder is not my main priority in terms of self care after 2 years, right? But right now it is. And my therapy goes in that sense, and more specifically for me, codependency. But I don't want to spend the next 10 years complaining that I'm codependent, right? I'm working it actively. Even in my relationship, I'm establishing boundaries. I'm being assertive with friends, family, with romantic endeavors. Like, I am living my program, and I'm working in therapy once a week with a therapist, of course. And my life is recovering from all of those maladaptive behaviors. So for me, like, that imposter syndrome that I've described being in a very young age, and like dilemmas where you figure out that what you do doesn't matter. My coping mechanism was literally to not say what I did and say what I want people to think I did. Right. So that lying itself is real, which means the imposter syndrome is not coming from nowhere. It comes from the fact that you were not letting yourself be seen at a certain point, and people believe what you made up as a story about yourself. And that's the imposter. And when it happens at a really young age, at a time where we don't even remember the context and it doesn't really matter, but when we're a child and we experience this will pop up at any fucking moment, right? Because self-esteem is in jeopardy because of that. Self-worth, definitely, and the value that we bring. Why are we people pleaser? Because there's a disbalance in between how we feel that we are and how we present, how people perceive us, right?
Really weird because it's not. I don't really feel like it comes from childhood in mine. I feel like it really happened in relationships. No, not really anywhere before that. Now that could be a
Maybe.
consequence of how I saw relationships and what I expected from them, thanks to my parents who had a loving marriage, and so probably I felt disillusioned or depressed or deceived, even all these things, right, in relationships. So my expectations or my what I envisioned wasn't what was my reality. So it's possible. I believe my real masking started in relationships.
Yeah,
Might be something to
maybe.
discuss in therapy this week.
Well, that's an interesting topic, yes, because there's no right or wrong answer to this. To me, like, the relationship I got in, I am figuring out through my codependency work that it is rooted in my upbringing. It is rooted in the model of relationship I've seen around me. And like, I'm not the first of my legion to be overperforming to compensate for low self esteem. It is an acquired behavior, not an innate behavior. And, like, I'm generous, not necessarily because I'm in a relationship where it is mutually beneficial. I am generous because that's how I want to be perceived. Like, there's a big difference. Like, I am the good guy and therefore I will be loved. And it's transactional up to a certain extent because instead of showing that I'm hurt, that I'm in pain, or that I'm simply just not pleased with what's happening, I'll show and pretend that it's otherwise. So by doing this, whenever I'm having success in my life, in the same life where I'm playing pretend most of the time, I'm having a success, say in my career, a great breakthrough, and I'm celebrated. The only thing I can think about is how I could have done better and how, yeah, maybe that was not right. And, like, I'm literally destroying the moment for myself because I don't feel like I am at my place where I am ever. And, I'm a subject matter expert in any job that I did. I've been a subject matter expert. People look up to me because I get it and I'm good at teaching. That's who I am. But I still doubt myself. I still doubt that I have any value wherever I go. It all boils down to that concept of codependency, where the imposter syndrome is attached. The low self esteem is like a fuel to all this. And by working on conditional self acceptance, improving my self esteem, reducing my shame and guilt towards the past, and letting go, let the true letting go, right? The actually stop holding on things that cannot be changed in the past or that I cannot change today, brought me so much fucking peace, man. And I still have this imposter syndrome going back to my old life, but I don't have it in this podcast. I don't have it being a facilitator. I really don't. And that's like the first time in my life that I don't have this. And, like in my relationships as well, I am the person that I pretend I am. Like, there's a match. I'm presenting as who I am. Therefore, I am not an imposter. That's a fact, which means that I did not build on fake imagery. But whatever has to do with my past life, I have to dissociate from. Remind myself that I'm not living that life anymore, but people will hold me accountable to this. So the feeling of the imposter will follow me for the longest time. I need to find ways to cope with the fact that the past exists, even though I am moving on. Life will not move on with me. I'm not sure if you relate to that, but let's say
Yeah, I
perhaps a
do.
relationship with ex girlfriends or wives, or even child, like whatever is done in the past, like you're not doing anymore, or they are not doing anymore, but there's mutual resentment for whatever reason. Like, there's so much of those concepts that are just intricated. So for me, like when I'm saying, oh, I want to work my self esteem, that doesn't mean anything. Like, I cannot go into says I want to work my self esteem. Like, my goal was I want to work on my codependency, my PTSD. And by that, I need to work on my self esteem. I need to work on my self worth. I need to actually learn to reframe those ideas where I think I'm the only person guilty in a situation and that I should suffer eternally for it. Like, this is all things that if you don't do the whole thing holistically, I like this word, holistically, nothing good would actually happen or stick. You can build yourself a great ego that will be your self-esteem. It will only last until it collapses for the next upset in your life, right? And I'm living that sometime. I have been met with a few upset lately, but I'm not crashing entirely. I am not dramatizing like I used to, and I don't need to escape it. I don't need to use over it. I don't need to bite my nails over it. There's something that really changed there. And this is where the imposter syndrome has stopped for me. I am not playing a game. I am not pretending. And yes, you are disappointed with who I am and what I did. I'm sorry. I am like that and I did this. Don't play pretend. that this is also radical honesty for me. So far, that's the only way that I can actually manage this imposter syndrome and keep it at bay.
Yeah. No, I can relate. And it's funny how it works, especially with reconciling past and that. And it's not really something I ever talk about very much, right? And you know that. Um, but I noticed it getting better for me in dealings with certain people now because I've realized that even though I maybe thought it in my head or said it out loud, I didn't maybe somehow believe that somehow it wasn't all on me, right? And it took a while to get to that point to remember that there was other people around and they weren't helping either. So it was literally like, is it Atlas that has the fucking rock on his? Who is it? No, it's not Atlas. I can't think now. The guy that has
Yeah,
the
Atlas
world.
Atlas has the weight of the world on his shoulders.
It felt like that at some points, right? When you're carrying everybody,
Yep,
and no one's
I'll
helping.
relate to that.
Literally, like I remember periods I'm going through now where our memories come back and I deal with them where I was avoiding them in early recovery. This is why we've talked about the inventory and step four with AA, and I've told you my thinking is it never should be done in the first year. Organically, I'm able to process them and deal with them one at a time as they arise instead of dealing with them all in one fucking shot. And it's like little things. I'll just give you an example, right? Like I'm in my throes of my worst depression addiction, which is my first relationship, the one with the kids, my child, and my ex now that ignored us all. And it's like little things like literally I could come home and this was a weekly, daily thing, right? It was every day or every week. There was a fish, okay? So it's a beta fish. I'm on my way out the door or I just get home from work, whatever time of day, I would mention to one of the kids, can you change his fucking water? Because it's getting really dark. And it would literally be like a week later and I'd notice again, or I would have said it a few times and then I come home and I can't see the fish now. It's dark the water. Okay, I'll do it. It's the same thing for the cat litter, you know? Literally reek. I go, can someone change the cat litter and say this, you know? It's like people are living here, living with the situation, but everything is done by me all the time. And there's one of our facilitators I can relate to her shares I lived at where you have people around you that are not exactly helping the situation, you know, and then they wonder why at the end of the day you just plow back 18 beers and want to fucking shut the world off.
And you know that that's an interesting thing, and I relate to some of that, not necessarily in
And you
relationship
know
with
what
kids
used
at
to
all.
get me? Finally, I'd be watching TV and the cat litter's not too far, and the cat would literally have its four fucking arms and legs not touch the litter, only the edges. Look at me while it goes. I'd be like, poor bastard. Okay,
I'll
I'm
take care of
changing
you.
it. I'm changing it.
Yeah, relate to a lot of that, but I'm tempted to say, specifically, 12-step literature helped me with. Because actually, even in those things where I have a lot of reasons to resent people, if I concentrate on my part in it, I get so much more healing than if I concentrate on my resentment. And what I mean by that is that, you know, when you allow somebody to
Yeah,
do
I,
something to
I,
you,
I realize that. This is what I'm saying. I know where you're going with this. I know I didn't like make them do it. I wasn't as assertive or as forceful because I was so fucking tired all the time because I'm always like I'm drinking fucking 18 to 24 beers a night and doing lines in the bathroom, right? So I'm running on 4.5 hours sleep, dragging my ass on time to work back then, you know, and just getting through the day and every day starts over. So I literally don't have any strength to argue anymore. And I'm in full throes of addiction and starting to slide into a depression. If I just want to fuck, I'll do it myself and then I can start drinking or I can really start drinking, you know, and it's like,
yeah. And
but yeah, but go back and look at that. I realized it. I allowed it to happen. I also allowed myself to stay. I could have changed things too if I just got up and left for a little while. You know, sometimes a little bit of "I'm not there" syndrome kind of makes people wake up to your value that you don't realize you have. There's a lot of things
yes,
I could have done, but I also now acknowledge that there's no reason for me to feel and carry that now because it's done, for one thing. I wasn't alone in the situation. Now, did I help or not help the situation or not handle it well? Yes. Did I know any better? At the time, I didn't. But so I'm able to look back now, and if my stepkids or if, God forbid, if my ex would try to tell me something now, I'm sorry there, but I'm not a stepper, and I'm not going to apologize to you. I got nothing for you. I do have things I would like to tell you, but it just doesn't feel like amends. So,
I was not going there at all.
okay, so where are you going?
So, because the concept of analyzing your part in it, that's one of my core values now. Not sure if it I'll always been, but I think yes, because I keep blaming myself, right? Now I am analyzing my part in it to understand that I am responsible for some of it, especially the things that I'm not responsible of, you know? Because when, for the first time, you tell your son, let's say, oh, you have to do the litter and you have to take care of the fish. But if you show them that if they wait long enough, it will get done on itself, on its own, they'll never do it. Like that's something that they've learned. If they wait long enough, they don't have to be accountable. Somebody else gonna take the responsibility, and that person will be so trashed and mad that will go use over it and not have a discussion with said son that he is not owning his responsibilities. I took that example because I don't believe it is very emotionally challenging for you, and you just mentioned it, but I am guilty of that all the time. Like, I would put so much on my fucking shoulders and not even asking for help ever. I would just never ask for help because that then maybe people will be wondering, is he capable of it? And people will doubt me. And I cannot allow people to doubt me. So that's why, as you said, I would run on a 4 hour sleep or less and I would be trash, but I would be performing because I had to. Otherwise, I feel like I'm going to lose everything. Nobody did that to me. I people pleased to an extreme where I went to a point where I did not function anymore. And that's my story, right? At that time, I think you may have had that in the past. That's not your addiction life story. Like, I think we have big difference there on how we hit
Well, that's
rock
the
bottom.
first time of addiction. After
Yes,
that, my
that's
next addiction came without serious depression.
we had Caroline on the podcast, and you were talking about that. I remember because you were pretty much my age, and she was pretty much my age. I don't know. There might be something before we
Yeah, we
turn
did
40.
say it's 30, what was it, 30,
37.
37, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Approximately, but on a 100-year lifelong, 1 or 2 years doesn't really change them
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, in mid late 30s is where it happened for real for us. And
Yep.
it's interesting because
Yeah, go ahead.
we don't have the same reasons to get there, but at a certain point, the reason why it is not manageable do not matter. It just won't be manageable on its own. Again, you need to address it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's a lot of coming to terms with so much time that passed, and then the next relationship too, and then the long stretch of the party guy, a different woman in every port. So,
So like you live that time of your life and you might not have problem with it might not affect you today, but you're allowed to actually live those emotions that's been bottled up for decades, right?
oh yeah.
Sobriety gives you that now, and you can actually heal from that, even if it's not your primary concern. Like, now you can.
Well, in a lot of ways, it probably is. It's maybe not a concern, but it's probably still some of the last vessels the last vestiges to be addressed. Um, which I'm doing slowly on my own and with my therapy. But um, it's not like I made it a priority. But this is also the reason why recovery that I worry about how I am in relationships is why I've forbidden myself in a way from relationships. I'm talking about romantic relationships, obviously. Also, age factors into it. Everybody's baggage at a certain age, when you get past 50, it's really different because you're talking big changes in family. No, but they're dealing with people our age are going to be dealing with ailing parents, lots of more funerals to attend. It's not a fun time at a certain point. So you really have to be ready to be there for somebody because there's going to be a lot of life events. There's going to be diagnoses. There's going to be trauma. There could be a heart attack, strokes, anything. This all, once you get to a certain age, life becomes very real. You stop. You're not looking forward as much as looking back, and then you know what's in front or where it's going.
I'm not delusional. I'm well aware that I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
50. But I'm going to tell you one thing. I have abused this beautiful buddy of mine so hard for so long that I'm scared, that about all those ailments you mentioned, that will come to me much earlier, I believe. Irrational, maybe, but I do believe it. Maybe it's because I still feel like I need to be punished. I don't know. But I am more to the fact that I am scared of it. That's a really weird feeling. And maybe also because all of the women I've been with for any serious amount of time are between the age of like 42 and 47 today. I've always had older than mine realities, I'd like to say. And I've always been like that. So I'm seeing like 50s coming soon because, you know, people that I cared about, they're there. And I was there with them for some time. Not sure if that makes sense, but where I was going with that is that when I'm talking to somebody who's 30 years old today, even 35 sometime, it, 35 is really close to me. That's 3 year gap. Like I have so much in common, but I have so much not in common that the age gap of 3 years usually is a deal breaker for me to be friendly because my reality, my way to see things has been altered by my baggage, sorry. And I cannot change that. This is who I am. And especially now that I'm working at being extremely authentic and saying things as they are, like it is really becoming apparent that I am an old soul in some ways. I'm also a fucking teenager.
yeah,
Like that dichotomy is just insane.
yeah. I will give you some good experience that I had. My best years physically, stamina wise, strength wise, uh, work wise, and everything. Was prime for me. My prime for me was 39 to 44 to 45. Those were my
You're not
prime
shitting me,
years.
right?
I am not shitting you. I was
What
at
about your 30s?
no, not good because in my 30s I was beating the shit out of myself. I stopped drinking that period for when I was 37 till, and then started drinking again in 2011, 2010 about, but it didn't, it wasn't the complete slide, right? It took a while to settle in again, but definitely between that period, I was in peak stamina, peak form, peak strength, and I did work at it. Like I was okay. Well, don't want to go into my routine or my maintenance that we've talked
You
about.
don't have to. Anybody who's listening to that podcast know about this. You
Yeah,
can skip.
yeah. So to go from 200 and let's say 60 pounds and get down to 180, 180, 175, and then build your self back up to 195. It was drastic, and then I built myself back up to 195 with muscle, right? So I was in peak form,
Yeah.
and I had stopped using that program, obviously. So,
Hmm.
but uh, but I've always been able, you know this, right? I have this weird flirtation with certain things that I do and I stop, and even interests. I mean, literally interests, hobbies, interests, whatever. Nothing lasts with me. I'm a real Gemini. I'm very
Scatter.
flighty, is what I would say.
Yes, yes, yes.
Something can only hold my interest for so long, and then I just drop it.
In French, we say un touche à tout.
Yeah, something like that. So I'm aware of that. I'm even aware of that in sobriety. Like I worry about like facilitating and it is some people and that because my pattern through my whole life is present, 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 intense, and then I'm gone. Ghost.
Either turn a blind eye or learn to climb high heights of birds eye. Pining birds cry from pines opining. The words I prescribe combine the sightseeing perched on birds. I got burned on pyres, heard the word to wise. Search the surface, sure fits a first to die. All my personal ties die by turpentine. Time to turn the tides, titles turn to fight. If I don't earn my stripes, I go serpentine. This is verse of fire versus verse for hire. I surf the current, search what urgent side. Describe the words of verdant to verse to liars. In their layers, pill and earth design. Later pills a pill, purple skies. Way appealing, still felt immersified. Murdered like rehearsal, it hurts to find. While we live in the gutter, they mimic each other. I'm gutted like fishes, we're fishing for love. And I'll give them the mud from my lips like a drug that's so limited. Lemon on tongue, heavy left from my lungs. I'm a leopard, these leopards left steps on my stomach. It's never enough, I'm the shepherd you summon. The sum of my efforts, so summer for never. Let everything flush because nothing's forever. You ever just tasted your blood? Maybe it's rust, I'm erasing the touches you left on my skeleton. Breaking the trust of the face of my days while I'm facing the flood. I'm erasing and suns razor races to cook. Cut the waste of the race in the summer. Erasing the thunder I'd make just to savor the suffering. Chasing what was, we're all made just to fade in the dust. My limbs up like origami. It makes it easy to store the body. Humor me and my morbid hobbies. They're made of carpets, of course they copy. So they're zombies, flow to heartbeats. Pros McCarthy, Murakami. Atheist spits a form that's godly. That ain't for me, G, that's Fort Maserati. Ay, be careful, my crosses might come for your head. From here you look like a fly stuck in the web. I am so fabulous, God in the flesh. I am so Lazarus, I'm in the dead. I'm no one to play. I want the smoke and the hate, and I hope that you pray, because I know you won't get to wake, and you won't be so woke at your wake. I'm in my bag like a Sami victims. Don't say shit, who saw me victim. Tattoo flesh like a party picture. You're scared I'm red like McCarthyism. Look at my scalp to see sixes aligned. These Judases smile with their grip and a knife. I know I'm a star, so I give them my life. We're passing each other like ships in the night.
So,
Yeah. Speaking of maladaptive behavior, like killing yourself at a task until you're fed up with it, sounds like what you're doing at work. And I
yeah,
can see the way you approach facilitating. Like, you couldn't give a shit about meetings you don't have to be at. You do your thing, you enjoy yourself doing your thing. And if one person will not burn out over facilitating in the group, it's you.
yeah, that's the plan.
Well, because you've learned.
I'm also in recovery, in therapy. As everything starts to peel away, as certain things start to come back, since I'm cognizant of all this, I just told you all about it, my maladaptive behaviors and everything else. I am still incorporating what is, to me, my base nature, which is like I have that period during the week that I know Tuesday, Wednesdays, I'm tired. For some reason, the Tuesday is a slog at work. The Wednesday is a slog. So those nights, no meetings. I don't want meetings. I got to keep my shit on track, which is work routine, sleep routine, and at night maybe I do memes or watch TV. And then now I've moved away from watching too much of the TV that was like, how should I say it? It's just on the background, right? And I can zone in and out if I want. Now I'm bringing myself back, like, this one guy that we have, it's in one of our threads. I've been suggesting movies to him because I've deep dive back into movies again, but not blockbusters, right? Small movies. I love finding movies that are good, that have been not noticed or whatever. And now I'm starting to go back to what is a prime interest that's been constant for me. I call it the constant. I borrowed that from Lost, because if you ever watch Lost, there's a character that's the constant. For me, it's that. Look, I went into CGEP and I flirted with studying that as well. All my minors were film classes, screenwriting class, stuff like that. So that is my go-to nature. So I realized that what I'm doing was in recovery was there was a form of masking, like, in a way, and I had to put boundaries for myself, personal boundaries. I had to realize I needed to find the balance, and I feel like now I'm finding the balance again, where I don't have FOMO for things. I don't I mean, there's stuff I really still wish I could do, but money is an issue, but I'm getting better at that too as I'm starting to slowly come aware of that as well. It's
Yeah.
just there's a lot going on there. I just feel like it's just finally sinking in that never sunk in the first time and when I got sober.
Wow, man. It's beautiful that you're just a couple of months behind me because you're describing my last couple of months. Like literally finding my balance, finding my voice, finding a grounding and assertiveness that I really don't give a shit.
My I
I
found
couldn't care less.
I found my voice before I could find balance. My voice had to come first. I think I knew that. Like
And
I
you're
talked about
vocal.
my assertiveness at work, in the rooms too. It's like I stopped thinking about what I should say all the time or be careful sometimes. It's more like no, this I this is what I'll say. Yeah, and I'll just say it, and this is what I feel. So, and I've been
But
tapping into
something changed
feel.
with you. Something changed with I just want to interrupt because
Yeah,
this is
go.
important about what you just said. You used to be extremely cocky a couple of months ago. When we started that meme page, matter of fact, you were extremely cocky compared to now. Like right now, you'll say what you mean, but you'll be really acknowledging the impact it will have on others. You'll set the table in a way that it is less confronting as possible. Doesn't mean you're going to sugarcoat it, but your emotional intelligence toward others, let me bring an hypothesis, has increased as you started to forgive yourself and get better self-esteem. At least for me, this is the exact relationship. As I start treating myself better, I automatically treated others better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that quite a bit actually. Wasn't necessary. Now, one has to do with the other, and it's just a nice ancillary side effect, right? Because it wasn't a goal I was reaching for. Honestly, when I talk about being selfish in recovery, I mean it. I mean it from a sobriety standpoint. When I talk in the rooms about being selfish, I fucking well mean it. You come first, your sobriety comes first, your recovery comes first. Your gut should tell you that. If your gut tells you one thing, but you're thinking of something else because of something you've heard, whatever you heard is wrong, go with your gut. So for me, that came back in spades lately. And like, I'd like to say that, well, I have evidence now, right? That imposter syndrome is gone. That comparing of people is gone. I can go into those rooms now and know because I see the difference, and this time, the difference in mindset, the mindfulness and the awareness that I have now that I didn't before. Also my impact, like you talked about, reframing and being a little kinder and not coming at people with just what I'm really, if I go to my base nature, like primal nature, what would come out. And I've turned that down, instead of going hard on something, I'm able to remember that I'm only talking to myself, really. I'm saying this because it bothers me. So I'm saying it this way because I have an issue with it. What this person or these people on the other end are hearing, they don't want to hear this. So I'm able to like reframe it, but still get my point across, but also bring it back to what they need to hear, right? I don't know if that makes sense. It's the awareness of talking to people, and I talking to them as an intelligent human being instead of as a sponge that you're just going to take what I give you and you're going to believe me. That's not what I'm
So it's
doing
not
here.
dry, it's a mutual exchange, and it is actually a very meaningful human interaction. That's what you mean, right?
Yes, it's not me just spouting off my beliefs. My beliefs. Now, if somebody were to like, probably not in the room, but one to one, they want to confront me on beliefs. I have all day to argue with somebody, and I might hear what you say, and you might hear what I say, but it's doubtful that most people really sway from their core beliefs. We've had this talk about core values and core beliefs in a room. That I think that's what changed too, is what I wasn't able to identify in heritage as core values have become much clearer after a year away from heritage. I was talking like more than 14 months now.
Yes.
All that to say
I
though,
think
I'm not there to sway anybody or change minds. I'm there to help them, right? I'm there to listen. and hopefully give them something positive. But I'm not there to guide them and take their hand. So I try to tell them from my perspective what always has helped me, which is self-esteem, being selfish in recovery, reframing your own self-talk, all things that I've been dealing with in therapy, because this is what I know that has been working for me. So the only thing I can tell them now is, if they're there and listening to me because I have 14 months and no relapse, well, then the only use I have to them is telling them how I did it and what I did, and that they don't have to do it, but at least they heard me, and it maybe that's something they can think about for themselves. But like we've talked about before, we can't give people acceptance. Like we had acceptance going into heritage, so that's a hard thing to do, and sometimes I find myself pulling back on that a bit, because we know very well some people don't have acceptance always. They still struggle with the idea. So
And yes, I've lived that with a good friend of mine today, just a couple weeks over, but then the first upset, not the first, but a significant upset, and then back to square zero, because like acceptance is something that you have to come to on your own terms. Nobody can force you into acceptance. Even slave master could not do that,
yeah,
right? So
that's right.
nobody can do it. So I want to say that podcast, I think, has really helped us on everything that you just said. Because if you look back at what we did on the first pilot, we were cocky as fuck, and we were coming to pick up battles, right?
Well, that was, let's not forget that first pilot's a little,
Personal.
it's an outlier for me, because
Yes.
I had therapy that day dealing with anger issues, and then I walked into a podcast, and then
Yes.
it was probably not the
But if you
best
look
day
at
to
the
do that.
couple few
I
the
did
first
after, yes.
freestyle. Yeah.
Yes, I realize it's all a work in progress, but I mean, literally, that podcast, it was like I was itching for a fight.
Yes.
So,
But
uh,
something did click in you, right? Based on this, like you've externalized a lot of things. That was the extent of that therapy that day. In my opinion, it was a great outlet for you.
but now you've hit on a good point, is how many times do I say that I can't keep shit inside anymore? I need an outlet, and I need an outlet where I feel like I'm being heard. Somehow that works for me. I can't say it out loud to myself in a room. It doesn't work that way.
You should try though. I started to do it in the fucking mirror. It's uncomfortable as shit, but it works.
I have done things like that. It doesn't really do anything for me. So it does seem like there's something about my brain that needs at least one person, right? Because I think I need the. I think if I think I need other person's reaction, because it makes me reframe or think about what I'm saying and going, now maybe, because am I really saying just bullshit here, or am I making sense, and is it what I really think, or am I off? I know now that I can be triggered and go to my, like I call it, my base instinct, right? My primal instinct, which is attack first, which I really tried hard now not to do, because that is a leftover from old behaviors, right?
Yes, but I want to say that's very interesting because I think this is it. This is the value of interactions. This is even the value of fucking meetings
Yes.
as recovering addicts.
Yeah.
Because from the reaction we see on the faces, we are either validated or we should maybe second guess ourselves. And that's very like subconscious, right? Because we care about how this is perceived by others that we trust. And on this very fucking podcast, we had fun doing it like a caricature, like picking fights on certain belief the other person brings to the table, such as maintenance, such as going in a bar in recovery, these kind of things, right? We expanded on it, but the way that we interacted in there gave me that sense of, yeah, actually, this matters. I'm receiving feedback that is pertinent for me. And if I can be vulnerable, is something that I never did in my life, not even as a child, not even in any relationship. I have been in a 10-year relationship that ended recently. I wouldn't take criticism, and it's on me. I can only blame myself for it, for not understanding before that I needed to trust someone if I wanted to be in a relationship with them.
I think you hit on, for me, the exact word that I would never was before, or why I was, but I wouldn't show it, is vulnerable in anything, right? At work, in a relationship. I never talked about my real concerns or what was really bothering me, or the fact that I knew I was an alcoholic the first time, and every day coming home, I was like, I can't keep doing this. I'm driving. I can't keep doing this. I'm getting weird pains, all this stuff. Tell anybody? Never. Discuss my concerns? Never. Talk about my fears? Never. Talk about my past, stuff that made me who I am, that made my neuroses or made me this way? Never. And in recovery and with people and with therapy, because remember, I wasn't this way either. There was, I don't know what it was about me coming out of recovery from heritage. Everybody thought I was farther along than I was, and I was in some ways, but other things needed to be addressed. And now I'm finally hitting my stride, where what I'm talking about here is that vulnerability, where I will actually say the thing that it makes me uncomfortable or makes me feel uncomfortable, the thing that I wonder if I should say, because that's the thing I need to say now. Because if I don't say it, I go back and I'm going to think about it now, right?
Yeah, but there's a couple of things that actually are evidence-based factors to this. You've been in heritage for almost 3 months. You are older than most of us. You know, like people that are in their 20s, they go to rehab, don't get out the same
No,
mindset that you do.
yeah. No, at day three, I had the mindset of I'm recovering. I'm going to recover.
Yes, and
And
that's the key.
I'm not relapsing. There is no more. This is done. So how do I act as a sober person? What do I need to
Yes,
be as a continuing sober person? What
and
is it?
that's the moment of clarity, the
Yeah,
acceptance,
yeah.
and the conscious decision to never use again.
That's right. I had during detox, I suppose, but day three I was ready to start to work, right? After detoxing.
Yes, 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 yes. Um, so I guess we surrendered, and I'm not saying this to pick on the literature. I think that's the right word
It doesn't bother
for.
me anymore. That's another thing. The literature and the literal words from like 12 steps used to trigger me. It doesn't trigger me anymore. I realize, but you know how I frame it. I like to say I surrender to the people there, to the program, to
and,
all
and,
this.
and it's the same for me.
Yeah.
But what I came to appreciate about 12-step literature is its fucking simplicity. It really articulates complicated concept in words that are dumb. And I like that.
Yeah, I think that's the opposite for me then. I think that's what I don't like. Yeah, there's something about it. It's like there's a lot of room for interpretation when you're not when you
Yes, but I don't go there.
yeah,
For me, it's because I spent my entire life intellectualizing. And as I intellectualize, I'm not connected with
well,
my fucking
well you,
emotions,
you
right?
know how I am. I take my first instinct that I have to fight because of my neurodivergence is literal. And it's
Yeah,
it's hard for me even in social situations because it's literal,
I
right?
know.
I hear
I made some jokes that were really like either like if I would be saying this, that would be mean. And I've seen you react and well, is he mad at me kind of thing? Like, whoa, okay, no, I didn't mean that literally.
yeah, no, I mean, it's really, it's still there. That's just part of my whatever ADHD, neurodivergent, whatever the fuck it is. You know that acceptance never triggered me, but using words like surrender and talking about inventory and stuff like that, that used to get my goat. I had such a hard on against the 12 steps that I don't have now.
Yeah, art on was the exact word. I agree.
It's right.
But see what I referred to as analyzing your part in it. This is the same concept, but in a very smart approach to it, right? Because you can only move forward with the thing that you do accept, that you do acknowledge. And this is science based, right? It's the same concept with different words. So yeah, I guess getting over semantics for us has been really, really helpful. I have an extreme religious background. So for me, literature and scriptures are not meaningless. And what I mean by that is that the power of words I've witnessed and I've lived, right? It doesn't make it any more real, but the power of words over people is real. And that is where I found discomfort because there's a risk a significant risk for abuse. There's a significant risk for people that have good intentions but are not equipped to support others. Like there's all of that could go wrong, but there's that could go wrong everywhere. There's that could go wrong in smart rooms. So really, I don't have a problem with any of that. I just value honesty, integrity, and people that are genuine. Period. It doesn't matter what program they're working though.
Yeah, I could see that. I won't go that far. I still believe in being followed. I still believe in a path where you should be with counselors first.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, but
that's my beliefs, my needs.
you understand what I mean? This is
Yeah,
still my problem. Now this I won't waver. I have a problem with 12 steps because of the nature of the way they've set it up. By now, it feels like they should have progressed to a point where they're more helpful than this. You understand what I
and
mean?
this is where the,
Where do professionals get involved? This is the actual outlet that should be able to provide some, and they don't.
some fellowship do though. Some fellowship are very thorough
Yes,
and
but we know.
align with the system.
Yeah,
But what you're saying overall is real, and the obsession that the literature cannot evolve, or that when opposed to science, or things like there's a text that's so misogynistic. I'm not able to complete the reading, but it talks about the drinker and his wife, and like it's just unconceivable that people in 2024 would read that and not be triggered. You know,
Um, but that's
because
not
this
even.
program was for men.
Yeah.
This program was for
Yes,
men.
yes.
But one thing
Go.
is that we are talking from a place of privilege.
Yes,
We could afford treatment in that smart facility. AA saves lives of people that are on the street trying to get sober.
that's right, and I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, by now there should be. They're so beholden to their tenants of the pass the hat and the anonymous part and the next addict helping an addict. I just can't. I don't have faith in it. I just don't have faith in it. I know it works for some people, but we know that also that they skew their fucking stats, and we don't know how many people it really helps, and we don't know how many. Look, if people can walk off the street and AA helps them and they don't detox, they were maybe not in the same place as us either, right? You got to admit that.
Yes, some people get a lot of people get clean or sober by going to a medical detox for 7 days and then attending meetings.
That's right.
There's that too,
But
right?
the thing with AA though is their stats skew with those the people that can walk in and stop on their own, following these steps
Yes.
that they could have bought just the book, but the fellowship is probably what they need actually.
Yes. Oh, yes. Okay. But to me, that remained pretty semantic. But my biggest problem with the book is that I cannot integrate a concept of an higher power to it. This is my childhood trauma. There's no fucking higher power that I can surrender to. But I am convinced that this greater power is within me. And I say that very humbly because I cannot tap in it by myself, but I have saved myself so many times. I did that. Nobody else saved my fucking ass when I was about to perish. And I am grateful to myself for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Like this concept would be called like you're a dry drunk or whatever Audi would call it. I don't give a single shit. This is where it's incompatible with my world views. But I can respect, and I do genuinely respect people that
Yeah.
externalize the concept of an higher power. It's an outlet. Like you need someone to talk to and someone to give you that feedback. The higher power does that. I sometimes when I'm not feeling that great and I want to validate certain things about myself, I ask Chat GPT. And shit you not, the feedback I receive is extremely good. Is ChatGPT a fucking higher power? No, it's a machine, but it's an outlet and it gives feedback. It's not bad. If that's the only thing I have, I'm going to use it.
I don't always look for feedback. It's not what I talk about when I have these conversations.
No, but you
I'm
gauge yourself based on the reaction, which is physical feedback.
where I look. It's so mindful what I do as I continue that it allows me to change some patterns that are left over. Is what I mean. What I was
Yes.
trying to say about AA, though, it has nothing to do with the goddamn book. Is when you get the people in the fucking meetings, how to help them best. Now, I don't believe in the process that they do, especially the people that adhere to it by going by the steps exactly in the order that they are. We've talked about where that inventory step should probably come later.
Yeah. But yes, but we've worked all those steps. In the 30 days that I spent at Heritage, I worked the entire integrity of those steps.
Yes, but not the way they do it. It's less traumatic. There's no one.
It's science based. The big difference, it is science based, and this is where I feel safe. This is where I find comfort.
Yes, and we burned those, right? We burned them in the fire, the letters we wrote in that. We weren't reading them necessarily out loud. Some of these, so, but yeah, but I still have a problem with, because we've seen too many examples. We know this from things that have happened. The denial of all things science sometimes, and medication. And what the definition of clean and sober too. Okay, a lot of problems I have with AA. Just like the literature is fine, I guess, on its own, but I still have a problem with the mindset, with the tenets they hold to, the idea that by now they should be able to be an organization that offers more help than they do. Yet they decide to remain still the same as they are. They're stagnant. They will be replaced one day. I'm confident of that. Because I think what will happen is an actual subset will become better than them, providing more resources and help, and will become the norm. But I think that's still in the future. But I think this fundamentalist version will eventually fade and just remain a fundamentalist version.
I guess in the same way that Western civilization slipped away from religious control, or like the society is not ruled by religion anymore. And I don't want to say that it is religious. It's not even my point. But at certain point, we choose facts as a society.
They're not religious. They are rigid. There's a difference.
Yes.
You understand?
Some people need that. I'm convinced
No,
of that.
no. I mean, in that this book that was written by a man. This one's not written by prophets. Stories by prophets that were written by monks in cardinals in a monastery somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, this is just
We know that comes.
yeah, right. So I mean, I've read it. I get nothing from the book really. Really, I don't. There's nothing there for me. So I read other books, and I have read other books, right? And
Yes.
so that's just me. But what I mean still is that if someone were to ask me, there's no way in hell I would recommend it if they have the means to do something else. Not a chance.
Yes. And I mean, the problem for me is a bit what we talked about, that imposter syndrome, that fucking low self-esteem and sense of self-worth. If you already did all that work in SMART, but now you're being told that you got to start to work from step one, you'll believe it. You'll believe that you didn't do all the work you did. You'll gaslight yourself into thinking that you're not in any healing capacity. And it is not in the book. Like, nowhere in the book it suggests you should go off your meds. But for some reason, so many people are being told this by their sponsors. And some will say, oh, no, that's just this. No. Like, we've seen it, we've read about it, going off your meds because those, and sometimes it's referred to satanic substances, right? Like, a lot of things are fucking nonsensical, but this is not in the book. This is how people actually interact with one another, and that relationship one-on-one.
Well, now wait a
Is
second.
scary to me.
Well, now that you went there, we do know there's a subset. I don't know how big they are because they're very vocal, so it's hard to tell because they're vocal. They seem larger than they are, probably, because we hear a lot of moderate voices too. There's so many Facebook pages, I get to see the moderate voices, but the subset is still there, and that book is religious to them. That book is not.
Yes.
There's no fault in that book. They can quote the page and the line from the page, right? They do it like we know people that do this. That quote pages from the book like it means something. I understand it means something, but I mean the way they mean it, it's different, right?
It's perverting the message.
It's taking. It's like when every other religion suddenly decides we're going to interpret it this way and we're going to interpret it this way. It's even like, look,
Okay, so we agree on this. The one thing that I'm very critical of AA and ACA, whatever, as organization, is that when we raise this up, they say, well, yes, this is a very vocal minority. And then argument is arrested there. I mean, what are you doing about it? How do you hold these people accountable? How do you expose them? How do you keep people safe from that? And perhaps,
among
why
other
don't you
things.
consider a little training? You want to be a sponsor? Perhaps you should learn how to help people, because this is not an innate thing. You know, you got to learn the framework to help people, what the do's and the don'ts. We cannot expect people to know that on their own, which means that even the greatest sponsors are still not professional and can have adverse effect even if they have the best intentions. I myself, I'm not a therapist. As a friend, can have the best intention and have adverse effect on my friend without knowing or intending to. Like, I don't pretend that I'm any better than those sponsors, but I'm telling you that I will never be a sponsor for this reason.
Yeah, on one of those Facebook pages I was talking about is a person that was flirting with AA and they were having bad experiences. So eventually they actually reached out to me and asked me about SMART. And I never really got around in messages really talking too much about SMART. And the person bought the handbook, so I assume they have it now. But what I was telling them, and they were going away, it was a holiday coming up, right? It was Thanksgiving. So there was family involved. And what I told them, I think, well, they said it was what they needed to hear. I hope it was. And I'm not going to go into everything I wrote, but to sum it all up was at the point that this person was at, they were starting to feel pretty low and they were already there. I had to remind them. To me, I'm reminding myself that I'm, in a way, it's like I'm reminding myself so I spit it out and it comes out as like, I had to remind them, first foremost in sobriety, you have to be selfish. Only you can take care of your sobriety. Only you can watch over your sobriety. Only you understand it. And no one that you're with or talking to that isn't sober and gone through recovery is going to understand you. They're going to come at it from where they've always been, just like nothing ever happened, and pick up from where they left off from the time before. So you have to come into this in your mindset, and my sobriety is number one. That's what I said. And you have to, and I use this word, you have to be selfish. And I said, a lot of people consider selfish a bad word. I consider it a very fucking good word in sobriety. And in recovery, selfish should be your number one
It's
word.
essential.
It's essential. I said, you have to be selfish. You have to keep your boundaries. You have to pay attention to what you're feeling. And if you feel like you're in danger, you need to get the fuck out of the situation. And apparently, I didn't hear or anything for a couple of days. And then that's what happened. This person got themselves out of the situation and then went home and started using that mindset. It was like it was, I don't know what he was hearing in the rooms. And I also used the word, you have agency here. It's your recovery. You're responsible for it. So that all clicked, that this person realized that they had to own it. No one was going to help them. Once they realized that this is you alone doing this, you have to decide what boundaries are, what kind of language you can hear from people, what your response should be, or if that response is going to put you in a bad place. You got to make all these decisions on your own, and you have agency here, and you have to use it. And they did, and I was so happy when they did.
I think that that's a great segue to bring it back to our own conception of recovery, and perhaps adding to wrapping this up
Yeah,
that, like in SMART, there's no hierarchy, and this is very important. We are on the same level as the founders. Like, there's nobody that, like, yes, there is authority because it's an organization. It's, like, it needs to
science
be ran.
based with doctors.
People
Yes,
have roles, but in terms of knowledge or accountability, we're all one and the same as addicts trying to help one another. And like in our rooms, our own community, private community, facilitators are embodying that. Like, we have a responsibility for people's safety in the room, but that's about it. And we are running, so the time management is okay, and we stay on topic. But other than that, I am no different than the next person that speaks after me. Like there's definitely not. I've reached sober level 2. No, I'm sober level 0. Every day I get to make the decision if I'm gonna stay sober or not, and it will be like that until I fucking die.
Well,
And
I
it's not painful. It's not a painful decision,
it's not a
I
painful
don't.
decision, but I think that's where where I brought, like, when I assumed my agency is when I stopped worrying about where other people were. You're there in your recovery, or you've relapsed, or you're ahead of me. That doesn't matter. I know what I'm doing in my program. So I come at it like that, and I don't waver. Do not question my thinking in my program anymore at all. I'm not looking outside. Remember, I talked about AA being confusing. You know, for me, there was only certain aspects that I can incorporate in my program that were going to work for me, and other things I had to leave behind, which a lot of people do with their own programs, right? They pick and choose what they need. But yeah, when I get into the rooms, yes, we're all in the same place. But in my head, I know that I own it. And this call comes back to acceptance, I believe. So for me, to think any otherwise puts me back in low esteem mode, where I have to find
Well,
the
yeah,
balance.
I am confident in my own program, but in terms of telling other people what they should do, oh no, I have absolutely no idea what they should do.
No, because we don't know what they're actually thinking. We only hope that they're being honest, for one thing.
That's why feedback is talking about myself, not them.
That's right. My feedbacks too, and I think that's the thing, is that we're totally honest, and it's probably the reason all the facilitators are totally honest.
Yeah, but the reason why actually I like this podcast is you're the only person who give me feedback, starting by you, and vice versa, right? I get to give you feedback and realize that I'm wrong most of the time with my assumptions. You know what I mean?
No, you're not always wrong with me.
Not always, but sometimes
It
I am big
just
time.
it sometimes I just need to let it sit, and then I come back to you later, and I go, or I might be like, oh, I changed my position on that or whatever, right?
And same thing for me.
But
But
yeah, go ahead.
like we could not do that in the rooms. First of all, we don't have this familiarity for other people, and I don't know. I cannot give you feedback about things that I don't know.
Yes, that's right. So we can only address what we choose to reveal, obviously. But yeah,
Yeah. So, but anyways, all that to say that I'm cognizant that it works very well for other people, and the reason why it doesn't work with me are pretty clear. But I can appreciate the entire thing from a distance.
yes,
I witness every day people that get hurt, especially on step 4, but not only.
no, not only that step.
But maybe they would get hurt at the concept of acceptance in the cycle of change, you know? You know what I mean?
The other,
It doesn't mean because they would be working smart that it would work for them.
but that's the thing. That's the thing I have a problem with. I feel like some people are confusing what they're looking for. Now, if you think, I'm sorry there, but there was a study about people that prayed and people that don't pray, and what the outcomes were, and they were the same.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there's no benefit to praying, and these are studies. Go look them up online. But what I mean by that is, if you're not working your program, at least with SMART, we have REBT, DBT, we have all these things that we learn the techniques to help us in these moments when we need it the most. I don't believe sometimes just sitting there and saying that damn prayer over and over again is really working. Matter of fact, I
Because we're
think it
not.
would make me more anxious.
Me too. And I see people that are working this program very hard and are becoming incrementally anxious from it. But not the point.
No, but you
Because
understand what I mean? Is if the program doesn't give you something besides this, then what are you
we
taking
are all
from it?
different, right? I cannot work something that is faith based. I cannot. I just can't. I am working on probabilities. I'm working on artifacts or hypotheses that are instructed.
Well, look,
This is how my brain works,
wait,
right?
wait,
But when
wait a minute, though.
when you are
Okay, go ahead, go ahead.
when you are working a faith based program, the problem is when your faith fades, you have to read the book over and over again to remember. And to me, this is the purest form of self gaslighting that exists on earth. I know that because I have been doing this for a very long time
Yes,
as a young child
you
and as
have
a
the background.
teenager.
What I meant, where I was going to interrupt was because of the other pages that I'm on, and I see that subset of steppers. Their advice isn't very useful. Essentially, when people are in anxious moments, a lot of times is do one piece of advice that sounds helpful. If for some reason there is a meeting at that time, then go to a meeting. Sure, being out will probably change your mind. Just that is a distraction. For me, that makes sense. And you're with people and fellowship and that. But a lot of these times, people are not where there's going to be a meeting unless you're going online and you go to the 24-hour online ones. But most of the time, the advice is just don't pick up. Yeah, I love that line. They use it so often. Just don't pick up. That's mantra of theirs, and they use it so often, like it's so simple. If you don't have the disputing techniques,
It doesn't do much for me because I never want to pick up.
no. But
I may want to kill
I'm
myself
talking about
momentarily.
other people that I'm seeing
Yes, but
live, right, in their comments.
some people told me this and it didn't help me. That's what I mean by that. Because momentarily, I might want to kill myself for a few seconds. Momentarily, I might want to, do something wrong. That have addictive behaviors. But for me, I cannot picture myself getting to the point where I have let myself spiral down so much that I will actually pick up. Like when I'm struggling, I am days or months away from the point where I would pick up.
Yes,
So what bothers me is that if you remain there all the time, just about to pick up, how are you improving? How does your addictive behaviors cease to exist?
this is
And
what I mean.
where do you replace those addictive behavior with actually sane and healthy ways to handle your fucking life? Like it doesn't make sense for me because I'm not in danger of picking up. I'm upset. I need support. I need to believe in myself. I need whatever support, but has nothing to do with my desire to pick up.
To be fair, in these pages, there are people that come in with the support and they're AA members, and they talk about their struggle and how to get better or whatever, But because you have these other voices, we know if you're at a low point, you're going to hear those voices louder than you're going to hear the positive message sometimes.
And I want to believe that there's no predatory dynamic there. But when you're at your lowest, you'll find those voices coming to you.
They're already there, and now they're going to be amplified. That's what I mean when I say the tools, the techniques, the distractions, whatever else you need. Anyways, this is a long for another
Hey,
time.
it started by the fact that we had made peace with the concept of 12-step. We may have to work on ourselves a bit.
We made peace. Well,
No, but we say
I made
we're not
peace.
bothered
Yes,
by it anymore.
I made peace. But I mean, only because I just made peace. I can't really give a reason. It's just because it was no good for me
That's the thing, right?
to continue to have this antagonist. I don't need an antagonist
So,
to live.
I approach 12-step now with empathy. What I mean is that my friends that are working this program, I want to be able to support them. And I need to understand the basic concept of that. And I come to appreciate the literature for its simplicity. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help me. But it helps me simplify it the way that I talk, though. And this too shall pass says a lot of things that it doesn't say, you know? And some if these peoples are reinforced by these words, then it's just an act of love of saying it to them.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm big about love,
Well, I don't have a problem stealing their words. I do it all the time now. But because they don't have as far as I know, they don't have the copyright on them. But
Using these words with great intention, knowingly or in the intent of having the other person best interest at heart, right? You're trying to help them.
that's right.
You're not trying to make it a mockery.
Yes,
Like it works if you work it. I use it to every sauce in very
I never use that.
But I use it in the sense that, well, nothing works if you don't work.
And I
If you don't do it,
never,
it will not do it on its own.
I
You
never
have
go
to
there.
take ownership.
Yes, I talk about agency and ownership. I never use that phrase. That phrase still triggers me a bit.
Yeah, because it kind of implies it won't fail.
Well, no, it assigns blame as far as I'm concerned. That's why I don't like it. It's not productive. It's not a helpful phrase. There's
For me, it's
when
ownership.
I talk,
So,
yes, when I talk about ownership and agency and selfishness, this is getting away from that fucking phrase. And it makes, I think some people don't, they're not approached sometimes with those words. Because for this person I was talking to you about, that I mentioned this, that was the words that clicked for them. And I was so glad I used them because it's what I believe, for one thing, and it was what they needed to hear. Apparently, weren't hearing the message that clicked for them. That one clicked.
yes, well, and we find our own voice, and that's exactly what it is. My voice doesn't really use much of those concepts, but I can adapt to the reality of other people. This is emotional intelligence for me. But I'm going to ask you one thing, Eric. If you're sitting on the swing, and I'm telling you, you got to swing for it to swing, is it productive?
If I'm gonna, I have to make it.
You got to swing it. Otherwise, it won't swing. You're sitting on the swing. You're trying to have fun. And
Yeah,
if you don't move, it won't move.
right.
Right? You are accountable for your own swinging.
Is this how you explain to people how they should work their program? Is this helpful?
Acceptance and ownership's pretty much about swinging the swing by yourself.
Okay, but you're just moving your legs.
I can push you on the swing,
That's
but
different.
that won't
Somebody else
take
is
you so
helping you.
far.
So that's somebody helping you. I'm not sure.
Yes, but I cannot swing for you.
That's right.
And this is what they mean by that. I understand that you have a negative connotation to it, but it's just what it is.
Yeah.
And
You
then I
know,
go back to how simple that is. It's so simple that you can interpret it otherwise.
the negative connotation I get from that is because that's their go-to response for someone that's struggling. That's not what they need to hear at the moment. That's the problem.
Right.
Because
Anyways,
it's infallible, the message.
yes, we won't resolve that overnight. And I
Not
don't
at
want to
all.
have too much to edit out because there's a bit of repetition in all this, right? We have a great podcast on end. So now, why don't we set up the outro of that shit? Because I'm late to my thing because I don't have boundaries strong enough
An outro?
to respect myself.
What's an outro? I don't know, we just figure out a way to end it. Don't forget,
it's the outro.
well, since we're here, we have a meme page. Don't forget, folks, go visit 12 Step Crashers. And there's also the sister page, 12 Step Crashers Fellowship. What are you pointing at? Okay, I thought you were pointing at something. And we have a lot of podcasts dropping now soon, don't we?
We do. We have other guests booked, and we have a few freestyle that will be coming out. I want to thank you, Eric, for this very rich discussion. Dissociation, self-esteem, imposter syndrome. We've worked a lot tonight, or we consolidate a lot of work we already did. And this is the beauty of those freestyles for me.
Yeah.
It is very therapeutic.
It's the equivalent of a where you're at meeting, just like you do.
Well, we give feedback, yo, bro. All right, good night.
Bye, everyone.
12 Step Crashers
Check it
podcast.
out.